Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a co-host with me. This is Bailee. Say hi, Bailee. Hello. So today a little bit of a different sort of video. More of a reaction video, less scripted. I found that the scripted videos really don't allow me to show too much of my personality. And that's sort of what the channel's about. Yeah, it's about education, but it's also about allowing me to be myself. So I don't know how many of you have been able to check out the new 9-part YouTube documentary, An Inconvenient Faith. So it sort of brings together apologetic voices with critical voices of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the episodes cover different topics along the way. Specifically today, I watched the 5th episode yesterday, and the 5th episode was on the issue of race in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it happens to be a subject that when I was finishing up my PhD and writing my dissertation, that was really the focus of my dissertation, that being the church and the racial priesthood ban. And as I was watching the video, I sort of got a little emotional. Obviously, y'all can see I'm not a person of African descent. This wasn't something that ever affected me firsthand, but something that I researched and felt passionate about. I really didn't feel as if the episode really reached the core issue at hand with the priesthood ban. And I want to sort of delve into that today and what my thoughts were, what I thought was lacking, and really what I think many people are just looking for. So buckle up, and we're just going to delve deep into the priesthood ban. So 1620, if we're talking about primary source material, there's a gentleman in the United States, his name is Thomas Paine, and he's going to be the first person that talks about this idea of a curse of Cain. And he does this through some poetic type writing, specifically a quote here, "So cursed Cain, the scourge of all they race, now thou hast got a black and murdering face." This is really entering into the mainstream where we're going to see this idea of the curse of Cain being related to a black skin. Obviously, the Bible says that Cain was marked with a curse. What that is, nobody knows. According to Mr. Payton here, it's going to be a skin of blackness. So individuals with African descent, individuals with black skin, they're cursed with this curse of Cain, whatever that means. As soon as the 1830s, so about 200 years later, so we're in the 19th century, 1830, obviously a big time for Joseph Smith and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. David Walker, he's criticizing already the idea that Cain served as the origins for blackness, so he has a little bit of common sense about himself. He's not seeing blackness as a curse, maybe seeing it as just something genetic, maybe a little bit more melanin in the skin, but not seeing this as some biblical curse, and he's criticizing this thought process, hoping to snuff it out. So when we're talking about race in the early church itself, Joseph Smith, he's a pretty egalitarian guy for all of his faults. One of the places where he was a little bit better than most at the time, and in this time period, was on the issue of race. So you've got at least 2 individuals, some say up to 6 if you read Matt Harris's book. Elijah Habel and Q. Walker Lewis, these are 2 individuals that Joseph Smith knew had the priesthood, black members of the church, black men of the church, and this is just proof that Joseph Smith allowed blacks to have the priesthood. In a follow-up video, I'm going to talk about a secondary source, a dissertation in the 1900s that really tries to place the priesthood ban in Joseph Smith's world, but that really throws things off and really makes it into something that it's not. So the dominant narrative of the time period, Joseph Smith's time period, and eventually Brigham Young's time period, the dominant narrative of the time period is focused on the danger of miscegenation. And if we're talking about miscegenation, a big 50-cent word there, we're talking about interracial relationships, interracial marriage, so the dangers of mixing blacks and whites together, different races together. That's a large topic at this time. It's a large topic in secular fields. It's a large topic in pseudoscientific fields. It's a large topic in religious fields at this time as well. In 1843, an academic named J.C. Knott, he was arguing that intermarriage would actually lead to the extermination of both races. His belief and his research led to the idea that interracial marriage, and it would lead to long-term infertility and eventually the end of both races, black and whites. So we're really going to fast forward through this. Joseph Smith allows multiple men to receive the priesthood, allows multiple black men to have leadership roles during his time in the church. So we're going to fast forward to a point after Joseph Smith's out of the picture. He's been assassinated in Carthage. So we're going to March 1847. So in 1847, Brigham Young, he's leading the church across the plains. Eventually, they're going to make it to Utah. But in 1847, March 1847, Brigham Young meets with an individual named William McCary. Some people say that he had Native American background. Some people say that he's an African American. And William McCary really addresses this concern with Brigham Young and says, hey, Brigham, Brother Young, there's a problem. A lot of people are mistreating me. They're mistreating me really because I'm black. I look different than them. The racial question, it's leading to a lot of mistreatment. So what do you say as a leader of this church? What do you say about the racial problem? And Brigham Young to William McCary, and in his journals and other scribes report, he claims to not care about the blood or color of man in terms of receiving priesthood or serving in the church. Color has no effect on what role you play in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Church of Christ at this time. Mormons don't care about color, according to the soon-to-be prophet Brigham Young. So fast forward a couple of months, we're now in May and June of 1847. So William Appleby, who is working out in Massachusetts at this time, member of the church, he takes note of Walker Lewis. He writes to Brigham Young to express his concern that ordaining blacks to the priesthood might encourage interracial marriage. So if we go back a little bit ago, a couple minutes ago, I talked about the mainstream of thought of this time period where there was this idea that we had to prevent miscegenation, prevent interracial marriage. Anti-miscegenation laws are all across the country at this time. So William Appleby is really pulling on the tones of the day, the ideas of the day, and writing to Brigham Young with his concerns. December 1847, so we're about 6 months out now from those letters from William Appleby, and Brigham actually starts to criticize interracial marriage, and he echoes the teachings of J.C. Knott from the 1830s, and he notes that, well, when they mingle seed, it is death to all, end quote. So Brigham Young is now echoing this anti-miscegenation ideology, and this is starting to make it into his rhetoric. And by 1849, Brigham begins stating that Africans are cursed descendants of Cain. So now we're back 200 years, back to Mr. Peyton's ideas that the curse of Cain meant black skin. So Brigham Young is now, he's quoting the thoughts of the time period, the anti-miscegenation rules, ideologies, and now he's also beginning to quote this earlier idea that maybe the curse of Cain, since we don't know what it is because it's just words, he's starting to say that maybe blackness is the curse of Cain. And all of this eventually comes to a head a couple of years later. February 5th, 1852, Brigham Young gives a speech to the territorial legislature where he dictates the priesthood ban. Essentially, those with ancestry that could be traced back to Africa would be banned from receiving the priesthood and/or receiving temple blessings, therefore affecting both men and women that are black or have black ancestry. Some people call this the one-drop rule, because if you had one drop of African blood, you fell under this ban. So this video, it's really just serving as the background for where this came from. I felt that the Inconvenient Faith documentary, episode 5, really failed to paint this picture. They say that Brigham Young introduces the priesthood ban, but there's not really context. And I know it's not a history documentary, but when we're bringing up things that have affected people and did affect people for 126 years and continue to affect people's relationship with the church, it's really important to have everything in context. And this is sort of going to be where I'm going to go off a little. Yeah, so I brought Bailee today because she's sort of my little emotional support wiener dog, and she keeps me grounded here. So the tighter I squeeze her, she'll let me know when I've gone too far. So this issue, the Priesthood Ban, 1852, Brigham Young just spouts it off that those with African ancestry are going to be banned from both priesthood and temple ordinances. So what does that mean? If you're a non-Mormon watching this channel, first off, thank you. It's sort of a big deal. If you're a Mormon watching this channel, when I say temple rituals, you know that it's a big deal. So while the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 126 years between 1852 and 1978, when the priesthood ban is officially ended, for 126 years you could walk into any chapel across the United States and you could see black parishioners worshiping alongside white parishioners. And during a time where slavery was still rampant before the Civil War, Reconstruction fails, and racism is still rampant throughout the country, before the Civil Rights Movement in the United States, seeing blacks and whites worshiping together is absolutely beautiful. If you just stop there without understanding the theology, it's a win for the LDS Church. They had integrated wards and stakes, and it's absolutely beautiful. However, the theological teachings are much more sinister. If we think about what this means, so not being able to get your priesthood and or temple blessings, that means essentially that while others are going to be able to go to the temple and seal their families together forever, individuals with black ancestry are not. You're not going to be afforded one of the beautiful theological teachings of Mormonism. You're immediately barred from that beautiful benefit. So that's thing number one. So what I want to say really outside the box here is while they weren't segregating in real life, they were creating a segregated heaven of sorts. What's worse? I don't know. One goes on until we die, one goes on for eternity. So I'm not sure. I'm going to leave that up to you viewers to figure out what's actually worse there. And this issue of the documentary really did delve on this part. There's never been an apology at all. There's never been someone just stepping up to the podium at a general conference and saying, well, guess what, guys? We got that one wrong. In 2013, the gospel topic essay, Race in the Priesthood, was released, and scholars, through really creative wording without saying we got it wrong, essentially disavowed all of the past teachings of racial discrimination in the church without saying we're sorry. So in a church that is supposedly supposed to be led by Jesus, and Jesus teaches us to forgive, but also to offer penance when we are wrong, where is that from the leaders of our church? How do we heal? How do individuals affected by this? I shouldn't say we, because again, I didn't have to struggle with this issue firsthand. How are individuals expected to heal without an apology? And I'll delve into this later, but there is this question that over time, it starts as it's a doctrine. A doctrine can't be changed. And then we get to a point where, oh, it's actually a policy. Well, a policy can be changed. Church teachings, thanks to D. Michael Quinn, we sort of know the inner workings of this in order to change a church policy. Members of the Quorum of the 12 and the First Presidency, so 15 men, need to agree in a unanimous format that they want to change a policy. So let's think about what that means. If it's a doctrine, the teaching of a doctrine in the church is something that comes directly from God and it's unchangeable. Therefore, to say that the priesthood ban at any point in time was a doctrine, you are saying that God is racist. That's problematic. For a lot of people, God being racist would be a big problem. So now let's jump over to the policy aspect. If it's a policy and it could have been changed at any point in time, why then did it take 126 years? What that means, for 126 years, we could not have 15 men in a leadership role that could say that racism was bad. End story. There's no good answer to the racial priesthood ban. And until we get that apology, individuals are given that apology that were affected by this for years. Families affected by this for years. Individuals getting patriarchal blessings that saying that they were from the lineage of Cain. Until that apology comes, the healing can't start. So we wait.